being pushed out and suspended disproportionately. So that's something we've started to work on at our city school collaborative committee through City Hall in terms of those policies that then end up pushing people out of education, which results in all kinds of bad outcomes.
The question was, is there a systems project, a systems reanalyzing project as part of the city? Does that exist?
So there is an
tank.
Oh, well, we have actually quite a few think tanks in the city of Oakland, some of whom have actually produced some good suggestions on this, and we have Policy Link here and others. But I think your point is that in terms of the city and the schools and the other entities working together, and I think that's something that actually needs a lot of strengthening.
I'll just make a quick comment on the public education work. Because frankly, what we in the health department did was take a look at this lemon of increasing concentration of poverty in public education and try to flip it to a positive because it made a new chance for third-party reimbursement through Medicaid. And so the school clinics that I mentioned, about 80% of their operating budget is funded through the services they offer. So at Oakland High, there's now a brand new clinic. 80% of what it does happens because kids use it. So what I would say is, for us to, it's almost unfair to put the responsibility to interrupt the cycle of multi-generational poverty on the schools. It's going to take a reinvention of the public sector. But I think in this way I do agree with Gretchen that there's not enough money in the world to do it as we've been doing it. So I do think it's a legitimate ask from community to say, to challenge its public sector bureaucrats and leaders. How are you going to reinvent this? How are you going to make it different in the experience and lives of our children? And I think it will take a different approach. I think there's some hints to things that have worked. Some of those hints are bringing new resources, new revenue to a problem in the place where people are. So Medicaid and schools, right? The interaction between the city and schools, like the OFCY programming, investing directly in after-school work in a new way. Tony Smith, who unfortunately just left us in Oakland, he had a great line I love to use now. He said, it's not what we're doing, it's what more are we going to do? Because what we're doing isn't sufficient. So I do think, I wish I could chart for you the future, but I think this sort of nexus of public health and public education that we've been experimenting with in the last 5 years is a clue to redesigning public systems.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate the panel, each and every one of you, as a group even, putting in your extra effort to hold a forum of this nature. I have been a resident of Oakland for 45 years. So clearly I have been through many ups and downs of the city. I also have spent quite a few years in the not-for-profit world. I do not put down not-for-profit agencies. The city would be the loser without them. But I do look to the city for leadership. There's been talk of dual tracks of the social and police approach. And certainly many cities have tried this. There was also talk of Los Angeles. From what information I have from friends down there, and from little snippets that I read, Los Angeles has committed a significant amount of their resources. And granted, they have more resources, but a significant amount of their resources have not gone only to the social approach, but to the police approach as well. And they have, with some success, combated and stamped out the violence that has so poisoned the atmosphere that we all live in. There's also been a perspective in Oakland by some people that the city council has not had the political will, either through choice or through lack of will. To use that kind of approach against the violent aspect that is so coloring all of our lives, and the children's lives, particularly in this city. And I simply ask for comments from the panel.
Thank you. Anybody want to address that?
Well, I'll just claim that, that the city council used to be divided on that, and that lately we've taken some significant steps, both in terms of accountability and responsibility, as well as in terms of resource levels, to get back to where we need to be. And I think it's also important to recognize that we can expect a level of respect and accountability from our police department and expect crime fighting. And I think you all were making the point as well that the people of Oakland want crime to be fought and want police to be respectful and accountable and obey the law and behave in a constitutionally sound way. And there's no reason that we should have to choose between those two things. And in Los Angeles, they did increase law enforcement resources, but simultaneous to a serious crackdown on misconduct. And one of the things they discovered in the review in Los Angeles was that the overwhelming number of misconduct cases were being committed by a small cluster of officers. And that when they had a real system to crack down on misconduct, that it turns out it wasn't everybody. But you have to actually have systems in place to catch and identify those who are engaging in misconduct. And that's part of why I support what Oakland's doing now, which is that we have a federal compliance director, full-time, working with the police department to put in place that type of solution, like they did in Los Angeles. Because if the public can't trust that a police officer who does engage in misconduct will be stopped and held accountable, and if necessary, taken out of that job, then it's going to be hard for them to support the increased police resources. So I really think that we need to have the officer for every beat, to have the adequate resources and the accountability. And frankly, that's a big part of the work that the compliance director that we authorized is doing. And the first report that's come out so far since he's come on says we've had the most improvement we've had in 10 years. So I don't think that it's impossible, for what that's worth.
Next question.
Gretchen was going to say something too, but
Oh, sure, go ahead. Oh, and Gretchen, did you want to say something? No.
Well, it was more in response to the sense I got from the last person who spoke that what we really need is a police response and not this other combined effort. And so it made me think back to, I'm a public health professional. I love public health. I get excited about it, but I don't usually have the community making placards and standing up and shouting, "Give us public health." But when it came to this, I did have some of that. There were people clamoring to call our issue a public health issue, and so I had to step back and wonder why that was happening. And I believe it was because people in the community understand that there are lots of factors that contribute to young people getting into a bad situation, either committing violence or being a victim of violence. It has to do with parents, and it has to do with schools, and it has to do with employment and sense of future, as well as police. And so for our community, they saw the public health approach as a framework under which you could hang all those other factors, and we could begin to work on them. And so that's why it's a complementary. It's not an either or. It's complementary with police, because we do want a safe environment for young people who are trying to, go the straight path. We want them to have a safe environment, but we also want to give supports to those young people that even make it possible to choose a path that is violence-free. So I don't ever think in any community it's probably an either or. I think it's a both and.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm the lady you called.
Thank you for coming.
And that's just one more of the new problems. The multiracial, well, not too broad socioeconomic, actually, of course, on the lake. And, is that better?
Yes.
Oh,
Perfect. Just speak close. We'll pick up.
and they're afraid to come out. And that's a new problem that we have now. Let's add that to the mix. I was so glad to hear the discussion go into what Ann was talking about never having enough not-for-profit and agencies working on, our really horribly victimized community. I was a community organizer in Pittsburgh, California, which was one of Johnson's target cities, for a small target city, to do some work to try and clean up the horrible mess we had then. And I immediately, I desegregated the school system and did the FinMax studies, and that led to all the intergroup work that was necessary. And you spoke of the success of your youth congress, Gretchen. And I and the people that we started working with soon realized that we needed a congress of all the agencies and all groups, school district and city council, human relations, the whole kit and caboodle, and every agency, every mental health, every public health agency, sitting together on a regular basis and brainstorming and trying to see where, doing a needs assessment at every meeting. And it can be, and every agency is doing their best to keep their day in court, and they're all doing great work. But there has to be dialogue and a needs assessment and a pin map study, and to allocate areas. And I would request that at the city level, and the public health department level and the not-for-profit level, that we would do that if it isn't being done now.
I think we have time for about 2 more questions, because I want to give our panelists an opportunity for some final thoughts. So 2 more questions, please.
I'm Ben Scott, teacher in West Oakland for 16 years, coached basketball, administration for 6, and then Laney College for 25. I didn't hear solutions. I heard intervention, I heard this, I heard that. The question is, do we really care about black and brown children? Do we look at those children as our children regardless of the race we are? Tony Smith did nothing for black and brown children in this city. He perpetuated privatization. We have a 49% dropout rate, people. Those children are in the streets. They should be in school. Their parents are partly responsible for getting them there. This city has closed 14 black schools in black neighborhoods, created hardships for those families that walk to school. 14. Not one Hill school has been closed. Racism is alive and well. We have built 8 or 9 prisons and only 3 or 4 new schools in this state. That's a disgrace. You must look at the front end. Police cannot solve this problem. You can't police us out of this one. The kids outnumber us. You need more coaches. You need more after-school activities. You need more things for children to do besides raise hell. You need to stop kicking them out of schools, making them feel less worth, of no value. That's slave owner plantation mentality. Our children are getting killed in this city. And they're our children. They're not black children, they're our children. unless we change things, unless we put it on the front end and make sure they learn how to read in the 3rd grade, then we will start to solve slowly the problem that we have in front of us. You can't hire enough police on this one. You've got to not go law and order. You can't wait until it gets to your front door or in the hills, hide behind the gates and everything else. When children feel less worth of any color, they take on an antisocial behavior. That results in the hood as drive-by shootings. We need to stop the guns. The kids are getting them. They say, Coach, I can get a gun walking 2 blocks and I can't buy cigarettes and I can get the bullets. The 3rd grade, I got in Oakland in '63. Kids fall behind in reading. When they fall behind in reading, there is a statistical correlation between children that can't read and kids that go to prisons. There is big money off of kids getting in trouble. That is a big business. Those prisons have to keep paying the guards. The kids have to keep coming. We must turn this around, and we must start to take care of our children. Not on the back end, but on the front end. If we can talk in this city about $800 million for a new football stadium for the Raiders, what if we put that in our low-performing schools and bring those schools up in black communities and brown communities? You cannot police yourself out of this one.
Thank you, sir.
So we're from Youth Alive, and I'm the program coordinator for the Teens on Target program. How you doing? So, Ann spoke about our prevention work and young people learning to become violence prevention educators, and I wanted to illuminate that just a bit. Because what that means is that kids come 3 times a week after school for hours in those meetings to work on mastering a curriculum so that they could reach middle school kids. In addition to that, we engage them in community engagement activities like tonight. And this is what happens when you make that investment, right? You have young people on a summer night and you say, hey, you want to go to this meeting and speak up about solutions, speak up about what, is important to youth voice and feeling safe, and they say, yes, I'll go. When I facilitated the conversation with them yesterday about some of the questions that you guys have been discussing on the panel, one of the things they said that makes them feel safe is being informed about what's going on around them. Being informed, but at the same time being invited to engage, to offer solutions, to make their voice heard, to let their stories be told. So I'm going to give them a chance to say, regardless of what anybody in this room has said, if it's a repeat or not, I'm going to invite them to exercise their voice. And before I do that, I want to say that the reason why I'm here tonight, this man here was the same person I am when I was in high school. And he brought me to community meetings. And he worked in my school and trained me. And now here I am with my son and the kids that I work with. So I'm going to give them the mic.
As youth, we feel that our biggest concerns are police. They are like the way that they're interacting with us. Also, that there are not enough safe and diverse activities for us to engage in within our communities. Also, we want to see positive acts in the community by police as well as diversity of officers within our community. So we want to see people that look like us and are from the same background that we're from.
Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to point it out that in Minneapolis, that I think her name is Gretchen, that she spoke of, how police officers are becoming research officers and going into middle schools and high schools and teaching them. I'm guessing just positive ways to act towards the police and how the police should interact to them. Basically repairing that damaged tension between the police and the community. And that's a big concern of mine. And I hope that her act of how she implemented that appears in Oakland very soon, because I think it would be very helpful starting off in the middle schools, you know? And just something that popped into my head as I was thinking this was that I really personally don't know anybody who's willing to talk to the police, who would volunteer to talk to the police. I know police are willing, they're reaching out a hand to talk to young kids, but I really don't know anybody that's willing to talk to them back, be 100% truthful. I know somebody who says, I don't want to talk to the police because that's how I was raised. My mama told me not to talk to the police. The police does this and that. That's why I'm not talking to the police. This damaged tension that we have with the community and the police, it should be repaired, because if there's tension, you know, how are they supposed to protect and serve without the young kids' idea of protect and serve? You know, and a good metaphor, I think, to wrap this all up would be, you know, if there's a hand what's the point of a hand reaching out if you're not able to grab it? No.
Very well said. Hopefully you got that. Well, you're going to be the last comment, and then we're going to give each of our panelists a minute to wrap up, and then we want to make sure we get you out of here close to on time as possible. So, ma'am, you have the second to last word.
My name is Lori Hill, and I'm with an organization called Providing Alternatives to Violence. I really appreciate the people from Youth Alive, what you each said. I really appreciate it, and what you said, sir, about we can't police our way out of this. We need enough police, but like city council members have to live in Oakland in their district, I think police have to live in Oakland. We pay their money, they need to be invested in the community. But besides that, when you look around this room, it's primarily adults, and most of us are working in order to pay our bills. We need to have a Youth Alive program in every school. And that could look like a leadership academy in each school. Because if we're working with our middle school kids on violence prevention, there's research that shows that violence prevention works. When you go and talk with kids and you say, you know what, don't ever kill anybody. It won't make things better. It will destroy your life. It will obviously end the other person's life, but it will destroy your life. And you give kids tactics to back out of or de-escalate conflict, they use them. The research shows that. And we need to hold our schools accountable for having violence prevention programs in every school. And those should be connected with leadership programs so that the kids, the adults don't have the time or truthfully the energy to do all the work that's needed. We need the young people working side by side with us. So the middle school kids can go to the elementary schools and talk with those kids. The kids love hearing from slightly older peers. The high school kids can go to the middle schools. The college kids at Laney and the other colleges can go to the high schools. We need to harness the energy and the skill and the brilliance of our children and our teenagers. When we get all of that happening in every school in this city, you know, we each could be standing next to a police officer. And if somebody with a gun has good aim, we're dead. It doesn't matter that there's a police officer standing next to us. I'm not saying an either or. We need the police officers. But it's a mental decision. It's an emotional decision to cause violence or to shoot somebody. And we need to be working on that level too. I agree it's not an either or. And we need to work on that level with every child in this city, every teenager in this city.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to give each panelist a minute to sum up everything. I'm sure they can do that. No problem at all. But, Gretchen, since you're the furthest away, you get the honor of going first. Any final thoughts?
Well, I was thinking about the gentleman who was talking about all of these kids being our kids, and are we serving them fully? We asked some hospital folks who were doing our version of the program that addresses the needs of kids who are hospitalized because they've been injured violently. We asked them, what are the top 3 things that young people want and need? And it just breaks my heart how plain the answer was. They needed housing, they needed education, and they needed jobs. And these are things that we should have provided every young person in the whole city. And so, yes, we are far from serving all of our young people the way we should be. On the other hand, I don't think, while we recognize this, we can't be paralyzed by the knowledge of how large our failings are. And so we still need to not be overwhelmed and be able to take steps forward, and it sounds like folks in Oakland are taking many good steps. I think using data to drive us, even my example of rewarding the police by measuring how many positive things they do, we all study to the test, so I think there might be room for more of that. And then I think the last young people who spoke really illustrated how much we can benefit by involving youth as we go forward. So thank you for including me.
Thank you for taking the time. I really do appreciate it. Ms. Captain?
Thank you so much. And I really thank the young people who spoke. I think it's important that we all take that to heart, because sometimes some people will say, oh, what's the value of these programs that involve young people in this work? And I'm really glad we got the opportunity to hear directly from them, because I hope we can all also help, and certainly I will as well, that as we work to bring more resources to these vital needs, that we need to continue to lift up to the public and to other decision makers how valuable this work is and how important it is for our young people to have real access to the kind of programs where they experience people treat them with respect and positive environments. And so, we do have these great nonprofits in our community. We do need more resources going into this type of program, and I think showing how successful they can be, showing that they are outperforming the California Department of Corrections by 75% with less money, at doing the goal, which is supposed to be, ending a continued cycle of crime. By lifting up these successes, I think that will be part of our effort to continue to work to get them more resources. And this morning, the president announced that he's going to be working to increase resources for programs for our young people as part of his comprehensive speech about economic prosperity and ensuring economic justice. And so, hopefully we can work together on getting some of that federal funding here to Oakland. And they tend to like seeing where a community is already doing something as a basis for then giving federal support for that effort. So I'm hopeful that our existing local funding, even though $6 million is not enough, as we work to find more locally, that I'm hopeful that there will be new federal and perhaps state efforts that we can tap into. And then the last 2 points I just want to mention that I'm going to take back from what people said in terms of things that are under city government authority is to work with our police officers around how are we rewarding them for positive interaction. As the point was made, idle hands are the devil's workshop, or, if you don't want someone doing something bad, give them something good. With our police officers, what are we doing to institutionalize rewarding them when they do the right thing? So I really like that suggestion. I'm going to take that back. And improving our police recruitment so that we're recruiting more people from Oakland, so that we're recruiting a more diverse police force, and recruiting people specifically on the basis of having respect for positive community relations, so that we stop perpetuating that rift. So thank you all.
Yeah, I'm going to comment on what the health department's gonna commit to as of tonight's conversation. Because I really thought, I was moved initially by the 4 goals of the work in Minneapolis, and I think it's on. I feel like we might have gotten too cute, because we got more data than you know what to do with, actually. And I think one of the things we haven't done is distilled it carefully enough so that it can become a movement. I'm really proud of the epidemiological sophistication of our unit. We are contributors to the unnatural causes stuff. We've been really, I think, in some ways achieved national recognition for the depth and scope of our data analysis, but hearing Gretchen, I had this moment of shame that we haven't done it in a way that it can contribute to the dialogue as well as we could have. So one of the first commitment I have of the 3 that I'm going to make is looking at ways to distill our data in such a way that it can help drive greater alignment between the city and the county on the violence prevention plan. So that's one. The second thing, I'm going to recommit to this basic concept of providing more employment opportunities for young people through the purchasing power of the public sector. I think we've experimented that, and we can do more of it, and we're going to keep doing it, because I agree that the solution isn't that complicated. It's something to do, something you want to do when you can do things that you shouldn't be doing during the times when you do it. And then the last thing that I want to commit the health department to do is a little bit of what I heard at the end around this concept of cascading mentorship. We have worked in a number of different settings where we funded direct programs with peer health educators working with, called Culture Keepers, with high schools working with middle schoolers, and middle schoolers working with elementary schools. I think we need to more specifically design that into our school health work and develop a specific expectation that in every school-based health center, there is a peer leadership group that is working with young people at a different developmental status. So those are the 3 things we're going to do at a minimum.
Thank you.
Yeah, Alex, you don't have to be ashamed of anything. I think, we are very lucky as a county to have a really innovative healthcare services agency and a leader of it who, continues to innovate and isn't satisfied with business as usual. So I'm definitely appreciative to have you on board here working on this. Did I hear clapping? That was awesome. And Beck, I know you said, we have to reward people when they do the right thing, right? Reward officers when they do the right thing. So I think we as voters need to think about rewarding our council when they do the right thing. And so I hope we are in an era where we're working all rowing in the same direction. And so, thank you for doing that. I would say, I am just one small nonprofit worker, and I depend a lot on my fellow public and systems, and definitely on my other nonprofit providers. I think what I can promise is I'm going to give Demetria more than a day's notice about any events that I hear, so she can bring more young people, so we can get more youth voices at these types of events. I'm also going to commit to working together. I heard the critique that there's too many nonprofits, and it probably feels that way because it doesn't feel like we are working together. And so, I can definitely commit to that, to sharing strategies and working on one path together as much as possible. And related to that, on owning our failings, right? We don't always do things right, and I think we need to get out of the mindset that we need to, keep our organization afloat and get in the mindset of we need to achieve our mission. And I'm definitely committed to that. In terms of what I'm hoping from the leadership that I see here, and the leadership that is not here but is that you are connected to, I think there is a resource issue, right? There's always going to be a resource issue. The information we heard tonight were the sort of critique of there's so many nonprofits. I think the problem is there's so many strategies, right? And so I want to reiterate what I said, that we need to be targeted. And so people said there's no specificity. So I want to go back to, we're talking about these high school and college age young people who are most likely to be involved in violence, the risk factors that are most prominent, that we should focus on are truancy, involvement in the juvenile criminal justice system, and exposure to violence. That is a lot of young people, but not everybody. And then what types of strategies, right? I think we've been guilty of picking way too many different types of strategies and trying to include everything in the plan, and I think we need to do fewer things universally. And like I said, if you tell me what the strategy is, I will use the wisdom of my staff and my youth leaders to innovate how to deliver that strategy on that strategy. So I gave this JJC, that's one example, but I think we need more comprehensive universal strategies like that that are really looking at doing that. So so I ask of the leadership that you give us a more specific, targeted, and universal program and or strategy, and stick with it. Don't change it, flavor of the month, stick with it. We'll stick on board with that. And I think my last comment would be to challenge the folks in the room, right? You know, this is our community that's suffering. There are things that work, and even if we narrow down what those things are going to be and what the strategy is, and pay people to do it as little as I pay my staff, we're still going to need more resources. And so I think that's a challenge for us as a community, right? As Oaklanders, like, what are we willing to dedicate to make sure that we invest in this at the level of the communities that are investing in crime prevention and reduction that works. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, when I close with this, I want to recognize the Maynard Institute for Journalism Education, which is a 35-year-old Oakland-based nonprofit. We have the president here, Dora Maynard, in the front row. If you want to learn more information about the Maynard Institute and its programs and how it helps to reframe the narrative or to work with media to do a better job of covering communities, I encourage you to go to mije.org. I also want to recognize the Oakland Tribune, George Kelly here holding his camera for hours trying to get a live stream so that this is also going over the internet and will be archived as well. And I want to quickly recognize Nia, who is the sound engineer and Oakland School of the Arts graduate, young woman coming from multiple jobs, getting ready to go to Cal State Hayward. She embodies, I think, very much learning skills and then utilizing those skills in a viable way. So she didn't know I was going to recognize her, but I think her involvement, she's been very professional, and she's, 18, 19 years old. So young folks can do good work. And lastly, I think I want to close with a statement the young man made. What good is a hand reaching out if someone doesn't want to embrace it? So with that, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to come. Our panel, please give them a rousing round of applause. Gordon, I know it's 10 o'clock in Minnesota. I want to thank you so much for taking the time. Take care. Go home. See you out of here. And all of you, be well, be safe. Take care.